It boggles my mind what a little bit of water tension can do. The land that I live on is essentially a desert, not that it's meant to be. Olowalu on the west side of Maui, 5 minutes south of Lahaina, used to be a breadfruit forest and was considered a place of refuge. So during the Hawaiian kapu system, if people got in political trouble, then they could go here for sanctuary. This waters in the streams and traditional waterways have been stolen and diverted for corporations, for private use, for hotel lawns, after the land was clear cut for the sandalwood industry and then the sugarcane industry. And if you remember number 4 from last week's episode, the 5 big reasons reconstructing your business into a regenerative business model is essential and urgent, I am referring to the same situation and the same person here. Now, the land is like a desert. The hills are covered in golden dried grasses, and there are wildfires every year, sometimes multiple times a year, bringing destruction. But in the last 12 months of living on this particular property, and the last 24 months that my husband has been regenerating the land here, our few acres have transformed. It struck me so intensely the other morning. Every morning, I walk our dogs along the path that meanders through the hill landscape. It's a 45-minute walk there and back. And when we cross back onto our property, it's like stepping through a veil from dry desert into lush forest. I should actually take a picture of this for you guys, and I'll post it on Instagram of the landscape 10 feet from each other of this dry grass landscape, which is unnatural for the area and due to poor land management and diverted water. And then 10 feet away, a lush forest. And all it took was consistent attention, mulch, and water. So in feng shui, flowing water represents wealth. A peaceful stream or river is like consistent money flowing into your business, and ponds and oceans are like the accrual of assets and wealth. This mentally makes a lot of sense since in settings like these dry settings here, water gives you your basic needs: food, sustenance, safety, fire prevention. So when business feels hard, when it feels dry like a desert, remember that some water and attention can rehabilitate it pretty quickly. So let's look a little bit deeper into this process. First, in terms of land, and then in terms of your business. When setting up a regenerative food growing system, there are 2 main stages: the setup phase and the maintenance phase. In the setup stage, In the setup phase, you are setting up the infrastructure and consistently inputting your energy in so that the groundwork is laid for the system to take care of itself, to self-regulate. Of course, step 0, so the step before that even, is understanding the climate, soil quality, and rhythms of the area that you're working within. It's not like you're gonna plant apple trees by sea level in a subtropical environment. The tree will never fruit because the environment is too hot. This actually blew my mind when I moved to Hawaii 10 years ago. It made sense that in Michigan, of course, bananas won't grow, but the opposite is also true. In Hawaii is for the most part, a subtropical environment, and unless you're at like 3,000-foot elevation or higher, you can't grow apple trees, stuff like that require a certain level of cold. It's just the climate isn't right or congruent with that kind of fruit tree. So the setup phase starts with creating fertile soil. That's step 0. When you create fertile soil, you don't have to bring in fertilizers to have nutrient-dense food. You can grow the fertilizer on site. So during this setup phase, the infrastructure you want to put in includes water lines if you aren't in a wet environment, mulch so that the ground can hold the water and it doesn't just wash away or evaporate, protection from things that want to eat What you're planting, like deer or bugs, protection from harsh elements that will kill a small plant or a sapling. So protection from wind, protection from too much sun, and plants that grow well together and that serve different purposes. And more on this in a future episode. And then there's time. It takes time for root systems to establish, assuming you're planting from seed versus transplanting large trees. It takes time for plants to grow. And then, in our next phase, in the maintenance phase, depending on the style of farm you set up, the style of growing system you want to set up, you may need to check in every day, every week, or as little as once a month. The most time-intensive part of this phase, the maintenance phase, is actually in harvesting the overabundance of food that the system grows. At this point, you may need to hire people to do that alone. And I'm not exaggerating here. This is really what you see in properly set up regenerative agriculture systems. It gets to this maintenance stage of the growing system. So you're through setup, and it might take a year or two to get to this point. And there's just so much harvesting. It's just so much growth, and you may need to hire people to do that job alone. So within your business, setting up a regenerative model for your business, you can see the same flow. In that step 0 of creating fertile soil, you need to understand your own genius. You need to understand what your people in the world needs. So this fertile soil for your business ecosystem to grow in. So that involves both you and the larger environment that you're in. You then need to set up the business infrastructure in that setup phase, the offer, the website pages, the branding. You can think of those as those water lines as the marketing channels you're putting in place to consistently create interest in your offers. Those first few months or years of business does require your energy. Unless you're transplanting larger trees that are ready to grow. You're bringing in this metaphor, bringing in proven offers into a space that's proven to buy, or you already have a certain level of visibility, or you have beliefs that you're carrying over from another business or another successful career. But when you do get to your maintenance stage, the amount of time and energy that's required from you will depend on how strong your regenerative system is and what size system you chose to put in place. Because it's not like everyone wants to create this massive forest, this massive business empire, right? So from the beginning, you actually want to be planning out the size of business that you're craving to create and deconditioning from the more is better, bigger is better, growth is always the best choice mindset. And the beauty is that it can be in seasons. You can plan your year so that you have full months off, knowing that harvest season will come around again next year and that it will provide more than enough for your needs and desires. A couple episodes ago, when we were talking about signs of you leading your business with an industrial mindset, like, see this here. There's this expectation that month after month, your business is going to be bringing in the same amount of money, or your business is going to be doing the same exact tasks, or you have to show up in your business in the exact same way. When really, if we are attuning with nature and in tuning with our own nature, there are times of the year that you can take off if you're building a business ecosystem to support that. So next week, I will be back with the biggest myths I see that people use to limit themselves from setting up a regenerative business. You're going to love that. And one more thing here is I want to tease you guys a little bit because in November, the week of November 13th, I am going to be releasing a much higher level intensive training around this exact concept, around your business as a food forest and what the different types of business food forests are and the exact process for designing and planting that out. Of course, I'm being metaphorical here. This is not just for eco-centric businesses, but instead how to design your business so that it is mimicking the way nature would do it. So I'm really, really excited about that. More on that in a a few weeks. Look out for I'm not sure if I'm gonna put it on the podcast. I might put because there'll be visual elements, but maybe I'll put the audio here on the podcast. So look for that the week of November 13th. I'm already writing out the whole training around it, and it's completely free. I'm writing out the full training around it. It's so juicy. I'm so excited to share. And if you haven't yet, make sure that you are on the Regenerative Business Creation Lab waitlist. We are opening up the doors on November 13th, and there are some very special discounts and bonuses only to people on the waitlist. It's not something I'm going to be talking about publicly or on Instagram. You have to be on the waitlist for those details in that special link. So make sure you're there. And I will see you next week with those big myths that we're going to address.